So, what's it really like being a brand new player to Destiny 2? Well, in this video, we're going to go over that in pretty good detail. And so, if you want to see more sci-fi content like this, if you enjoy sci-fi in general, you're a big fan, then be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. And let's just get straight into the video. So, for the most part, I will honestly say Destiny 2 has been a fantastic ride thus far. I've put in roughly 30 hours so far into the game as a brand new player, and I have no idea what's going on still, even after 30 hours. But all that being said, I really am feeling quite satisfied, even though a lot of what was thrown at me was quite overwhelming in the beginning. And the way I can really think of the analogy is I would see myself as a kid going into a big candy store filled with all the cool candies that I want, but there's so much of it that I don't know where to start. And that's kind of where Destiny 2 threw me into. It's like it threw me into the deep end where I didn't really know where to begin, because for the most part I was lucky enough to grab the Legacy Collection off of Epic Game Store during the holidays, and it was free. So I was like, wow, this is a steal. 80 bucks for, basically nothing. I got Shadowkeep, I got Beyond Light, I've got Witch Queen, and that was great. But then the game threw me right into Lightfall, which was kind of weird because, understandably so, because the game currently is at Lightfall as far as the narrative. But for a new player coming into it, I have no idea what Lightfall is, let alone Shadowkeep or anything like that. So I'm jumping in and I see Lightfall, and it just puts me into the story where the Witness and Callus are talking about what they're going to do. And I'm like, okay, this is cool. Like, as a sci-fi fan, I love this whole narrative, but I just didn't know who these people were and what their intentions were. So me being so used to the convoluted story that is Star Wars, I'm like, you know what? Let me just go right back in time, because you know how Star Wars is. They give you the future narrative, which is Darth Vader, and then it's like, okay, well, let's go back in time to the prequel trilogy, and then you get to know about how Anakin became Darth Vader. And that's how I thought about Destiny 2. I'm like, okay, you know what, now I know about the Witness and Callus, let me go back in time all the way back to Shadowkeep and see what transpired to lead us to where Lightfall is. So in my case, being a new player, it was totally fine, because I, again, coming from that background of sci-fi, growing up with Terminator 2 and Blade Runner and Star Wars and everything, all those things kind of fell into place for me. But for an entirely fresh, brand new player coming into this game, having no idea what's going on and being overwhelmed, I think that's a problem, and I hope that's fixed later on down the road. But as for me, in my case, it was overwhelming, yet it was satisfying, just because I got a chance to see what Lightfall had to offer, which was a good incentive, because then it can tell me whether or not I should buy Lightfall later on. And I'm already pretty much going to, just not yet, because there's so much. And that's just the tip of the iceberg. Like, we haven't even gone into things like the menu options and all of these things that are thrown at you via quests in the beginning. Like, you have all this new light stuff, and then because if you purchase, let's say, Legacy Collection, you also have the Witch Queen content, you've got Beyond Light content, you've got Shadowkeep content, and it's like the game doesn't know where to throw you at first, so you're kind of all over the place. And I was like, okay, well, I guess I start New Light, and then throughout New Light the game would show me Witch Queen stuff, and then eventually I would be shown Shadowkeep stuff. So it was like, again, it was all over the place, and so it was really, really overwhelming. But again, I try my best to be patient, and I think that's the best advice I can give to somebody who is picking up the game for the first time, is try to be patient. I think one of the best things you can do for a game like Destiny 2 is it's a game where you're rewarded heavily for your investment. And so while the game does feel really overwhelming in the beginning, I think the reason is because the game has so much depth and so much to offer the player that it's, admittedly, I do wish that Bungie would fix the experience a little bit better. I mean, I heard past horror stories that the game wasn't as good as far as the tutorial part of the game, and things have improved drastically since then. But I do feel like, at least in my case, I feel like everything was just kind of all over the place, and I wish they would just kind of organize it better, especially for those who have purchased, let's say, the Legacy Collection and are given the 3 expansions, and then you have to look into Lightfall. So that's just, again, that's just the tip of the iceberg. So let's get into the other part of the section, which will be menus and all the other stuff. Outside of all of the gameplay mechanics and the lore stuff that I mentioned, and just everything being thrown at you, honestly, like I said, I personally have the patience to endure. And like I was saying, Destiny 2, I feel, is a game where if you're willing to go past all of that, the game is exceptionally well designed, and it's such a deep and complex game that it's literally limitless as far as what you can do, as far as customization, as far as just gameplay. There's so much to choose from. However, all of that is confusing at times, if not many times, and that was one of my biggest concerns with the game, was the menus are just so confusing. And I was just like, where do I go? Like, how do I navigate this game? Like, I'm logging into the game, and I see all these planets, and I'm like, okay, there's the moon, there's the EDZ, and there's Neptune and Nessus and Eternity, and I'm like, what do these all mean? Like, you know, I'm just kind of thrown into the pit of fire, and I'm having to question, like, do I click on this, and what does it mean? What does Gambit mean? What does Vanguard mean? Now, again, like I said, as you progress in the game, it'll tell you these things, but it just would have been nice if, let's say, they just locked those things for the time being. You know, like placing a veil over those planets. Like, okay, you can't see this yet, just wait till you get there. But the fact that it was already kind of shown to you, of course, being me, I'm always curious. So I'm like, okay, what does this mean? What does that mean? And it was just all confusing. And then, of course, going into things like the energy of your specific, like, weapons and your mods, or your armor rather, I'm thinking to myself, okay, what is this? What is energy? How do I obtain it? Like, it didn't teach me what energy was and how to utilize it. So for the longest time, I was playing the game and I never even knew that I had to manually upgrade my energy. So I was like, I guess I just click, and then eventually, just by trial and error, I clicked on the energy cost and it just leveled things up. So I was like, all right, I guess that's how it works. But the fact that I had to go through all that confusion and curiosity to finally get to that point was like, that's kind of like not good. So once again, I do hope that the Bungie devs are listening and they eventually fix some things like that, making the experience for new players a lot easier. Because like I said, if I was somebody who was like impatient and just quick to anger, I probably would have left a long time ago. So just for that, and I know, just a quick heads up. Now again, if you are a new player watching this and you're listening, don't be scared, is what I should say. Don't be afraid, because again, I hate to repeat myself, but I want to make it very clear that this game is really, really fun. It's a really good game, and at its core, there's so much to offer you. There's PvP, there's PvE, there's PvEVP, there's plenty of content, and the game is rich, jam-packed with content. And so if you come from games like Apex Legends or Overwatch or Halo, any of those shooter games, you will have a blast playing Destiny 2. Like, there's so much customization, the depth in terms of what you can do with weapons and your loadouts is limitless. It's crazy how much this game has, but the caveat is that you have to learn, and you got to learn the hard way, because it is confusing. So that being said, I just want to kind of share that thought. I really hope that the menus are fixed, because it's really confusing trying to find out what like triumphs are, where's the triumph menu, and what are exotic catalysts, and how do you obtain catalysts, and what are exotic ciphers, and how do I get this ascendant shard. Like, I had to go out of my way outside the game to find all that. Like I had to Google how to obtain Ascendant Shards just so I can talk to Zhur. And even Zhur, another thing too, is like, you know, you're a new player and you see this character and he has all these legendaries and you're like, what's going on? Why does he have all these things in his hands? And I want them, but I don't know how to get them. So it would have been nice if the game explained to you, again, in-game, like something so simple like an in-game newsletter or an in-game update that gives new players a breakdown of what things mean would be cool down the road. Maybe I've missed it because, like I said, the menu's already a mess in my opinion, but I definitely think that if things were a little bit more organized in that sense, menu-wise and just navigating-wise for newer players, I think it would be a lot more sustainable. But all that being said, let's go into the final part, which is a more positive part, and I'll close off with my final thoughts. I'm going to most likely make a follow-up video to this, I think probably once I hit the 40 to 50 hour mark, just so that I can give my own full-fledged honest review after that long gameplay session. But before that, I just want to close off this video by saying that Destiny 2 at its core is a fantastic game. And if you are a sci-fi fan, if you are a sci-fi junkie, you love action, you love shooting things, you love the PvP competitive side, but you also want a little bit of PvE for a little bit more casual stuff, Destiny 2 has everything. Like I said before, it hits all the right buttons in terms of gameplay, and the gameplay loop itself is phenomenal. I've sunk 30 hours into the game, and I'll give you a little bit of a backstory. So initially, I wasn't too fond of Destiny 2. I'll be very, very frank. And that was because I heard a lot of mixed messages. And that was one of the biggest, I think, mistakes I made as a new player trying to get into this game, was that I followed too much of what other people thought of the game rather than jumping in myself and really getting a feel for it on my own. So for the longest time, I had a yearning to play the game, but because I spent so much time watching too many guides and listening to reviews from content creators who were just like way ahead of me, and their thoughts and their process were just not on my level. Their guides were not necessarily very helpful, if I'll be honest. So I had to like shut that off and come into the game completely fresh. So my expectations already were pretty low. But I think with that low expectation, I was really blown away by just how much depth, how much love is put into the game as far as the lore. Like, shout outs to the writers on this team at Bungie, because they've done a fantastic job. Again, I grew up with the likes of Halo. Childhood wise, you know, that was like a high school thing for me growing up with Halo back in the Xbox days. So I already knew that Bungie had at their core something truly special, but I never gave it a chance. And so I sat on the game for the longest time, and I'm talking about like a long time, like years. I just kind of put off Destiny 2. And then, yeah, like I said, lo and behold, I see Legacy Collection for free in the Epic Game Store during Christmas or during the holiday season. And I was like, you know what? I might as well try it, right? There's no harm in it. Worst case scenario is I just uninstall and I move back to what I was doing. So I gave it a chance, and that chance was really eye-opening. And I feel like it was because I said, you know what? I'm just going to take it my way. I'm going to go at my pace and do things at my pace. And this is what I would recommend to new players coming into this game. As a final closing statement, don't watch reviews for this game. Don't watch guides. Just stay away from that. Really, I really truly do believe that if you just come into this game completely fresh, completely brand new, you'll really get to understand the game from your own perspective, and it'll help you to really build a much more fond respect for the game, rather than going in and being led on by someone else's perspective, which can be really skewed because you don't know what they've gone through, you don't know what their experiences are, but yours is unique. And I feel like if you come into Destiny 2 with that mindset of, let me just throw myself into that candy store and just grab what I can and eat what I can and enjoy the journey, is basically what I'm trying to say. Come into Destiny 2 wanting to enjoy the journey, not wanting to look at what other people say, but just create your own voice, because ultimately that is what Destiny 2 is at its core. It's a game where the game encourages you to have your own voice. It encourages you to create your own character, in the sense that you have a class and you can create your own loadouts specifically to your liking, to your play style, and that's fantastic. And so if you're coming into this with this idea of, I want to create a character, I want freedom, I want expression, I want lore, I want some competitive, I also want some PvE, Destiny 2 has all of that and much, much more. And this game will continue to grow so long as Bungie continues to invest in it, which I think they will. So all that being said, please jump into this game. I highly recommend it. And if you are a new player watching this and you made it this far, then hey, subscribe, be a part of the community. I'm a very positive, laid back dude. We can learn together and we can, play together as well on stream. So all that being said, thank you so much for, sticking around this long and hearing my rant about the game and what it's like to be a completely brand new player after 30 hours. Again, look forward to another follow-up after about 40 to 50 hours, maybe 60, we'll see. But in any case, thank you so much. Subscribe if you are new and you want to be a part of the community and grow with me on my illustrious journey. And as always, new warriors, thank you, stay strong, and keep fighting, and may the Force be with you always. Peace.